Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In the year 2157, nestled deep within the remote wilderness of Alaska, a state-of-the-art research facility stood as a beacon of human ingenuity. Surrounded by towering mountains and thick pine forests, the facility was isolated from the rest of the world, a necessity for the kind of work being conducted within its reinforced steel walls. This was no ordinary lab. It was the birthplace of the most significant scientific breakthrough in human history, the chronocore, a device capable of manipulating time itself. Dr. Ilara Mercer, the lead scientist on the project, stood before the device, her fingers brushing lightly over its cool, metallic surface. The chronocore was a sleek, cylindrical machine, pulsing with a faint blue light, a symbol of both hope and danger. Ilara, a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and an air of quiet intensity, had dedicated her life to this moment. Her mind buzzed with the possibilities that their discovery could unlock, curing diseases, extending life, exploring distant futures, but she was also acutely aware of the ethical quagmire that time manipulation presented. Around her, the rest of the team worked diligently. Dr. Isaac Yates, a physicist known for his philosophical musings on the nature of time, was reviewing the latest data. His tall, lanky frame was hunched over a console, his brow furrowed in concentration. Beside him, Dr. Amara Patel, a quantum mechanics expert with a penchant for solving the unsolvable, was fine-tuning the chronocore's parameters. The rest of the team, a collection of the brightest minds in various scientific fields, were equally engrossed in their tasks, unaware that their lives were about to be irrevocably changed. "Ilara, you should see this," Isaac called out, his voice tinged with excitement. Ilara moved to his side, glancing at the screen. "We've just achieved a stable time dilation of 10 seconds within a localized field. It's incredible." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. They had been working toward this goal for years, and now it was finally within their grasp. "Can we sustain it?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with anticipation. Amara looked up from her station, her dark eyes gleaming with the same excitement. "Not only sustain it, but control it with pinpoint accuracy. We can create pockets of time that move faster, slower, or even loop back on themselves." Ilara nodded, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Then we've done it. We've crossed the threshold." But even as she said the words, a shadow of doubt crept into her mind. Manipulating time was no small feat, and the consequences of such power were as vast as they were unpredictable. She knew that their discovery would need to be handled with the utmost caution. The implications were staggering, and the potential for misuse was terrifying. "Isaac, Amara, we need to keep this under wraps until we've fully explored the ramifications," Ilara said, her tone suddenly serious. "No announcements, no publications. We can't afford to let this technology fall into the wrong hands." The team agreed, and the chronocore was placed under the highest security, its existence known only to those within the facility. But even as they took these precautions, their actions had not gone unnoticed. Across the galaxy, in a distant star system, an ancient and highly advanced civilization known as the Vortax detected the disturbances in the fabric of time. The Vortax were a species that had long mastered the physical and metaphysical aspects of the universe, except for one, time manipulation. The Vortax were deeply conservative, believing that time was a sacred and immutable force. To them, the discovery made by the human scientists was an abomination, a threat to the natural order of the cosmos. The Vortax Council, a governing body composed of the oldest and wisest of their kind, convened to discuss the situation. High Chancellor Zithra, a being of immense intellect and authority, presided over the meeting. "These humans have unlocked a power that they cannot possibly understand," Zithra began, her voice resonating through the chamber. "Time is not a tool to be wielded, it is the very essence of existence. If they are allowed to continue, they could unravel the fabric of reality itself." The other council members murmured in agreement, their voices a chorus of concern. The Vortax had always viewed themselves as guardians of the universe's delicate balance, and the thought of a lesser species tampering with time was intolerable. "We must act," Zithra declared, her decision final. "The humans must be eradicated before they can do irreparable harm." The council unanimously agreed, and a fleet of Vortax stealth ships was dispatched to Earth, armed with temporal nullifiers, devices designed to erase any traces of time manipulation and obliterate those responsible for it. The mission was clear: destroy the chronocore and eliminate all who knew of its existence. Back on Earth, the research team continued their work, unaware of the impending danger. But as days passed, strange occurrences began to unfold around the facility. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation, time seemed to slip in odd ways, and a pervasive sense of being watched crept into the minds of the scientists. It was Isaac who first noticed the anomalies, his sharp mind piecing together the evidence. "Ilara," he said one evening as they reviewed the day's data, "I think we're being monitored. There are irregularities in the temporal field that I can't explain. It's as if something, or someone, is observing us." Ilara frowned, her instincts telling her that Isaac was right. "We need to increase our security protocols and start working on a contingency plan. If someone, or something, is watching us, they may not have good intentions." As the team scrambled to tighten their defenses, Isaac managed to intercept a transmission, a signal from deep space that confirmed their worst fears. The Vortax were coming, and they were intent on erasing every trace of the chronocore. Panic threatened to set in, but Ilara quickly took control. "We can't outrun them, and we can't hide. Our only option is to fight, and we'll do it on our terms." Amara, ever the problem solver, was already formulating a plan. "If they want to play with time, let's give them more than they can handle. We can use the chronocore to create temporal traps, zones where time behaves unpredictably. It might be enough to confuse them, buy us some time." Isaac nodded, catching on to her idea. "We can design these traps to exploit their weaknesses. The Vortax rely on linear time perception, which means they'll struggle with anything that disrupts that." The team set to work, racing against the clock. They designed a series of intricate time traps around the facility, each one tailored to create chaos and confusion for the Vortax. There were zones where time would slow to a crawl, others where it would speed up to a dizzying pace, and some that would loop back on themselves, trapping any intruders in a never-ending cycle. As they worked, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over them. The stakes were higher than any of them had ever faced. The chronocore was their greatest achievement, but it had also made them a target for a civilization far more advanced than humanity. The night before the Vortax were expected to arrive, Ilara gathered her team. "We all knew the risks when we started this project," she said, her voice steady. "But we've come too far to back down now. We may be facing an enemy that is beyond our comprehension, but we're not powerless. We've created something incredible, and we're going to protect it." The team nodded in agreement, a sense of determination settling over them. They were scientists, not soldiers, but they would fight with the tools they had: knowledge, ingenuity, and the very technology that had brought them to this point. When the Vortax fleet arrived, cloaked in temporal shields that rendered them nearly invisible, they expected an easy victory. They had underestimated the resilience of the human spirit. As the first wave of ships approached the facility, they triggered the outermost time trap, a field of slowed time that caused the vortex ships to decelerate to a near standstill. The alien pilots, unaccustomed to such phenomena, struggled to regain control, only to find themselves ensnared in a looping time field, repeating the same maneuvers over and over again. Panic spread through the vortex ranks as more ships were caught in the traps. Some were frozen in time, their crews helpless as they watched their instruments fail. Others were accelerated to such speeds that their ships disintegrated from the stress. The vortex, with all their advanced technology, had never encountered anything like this. Inside the facility, the team monitored the battle with a mix of fear and hope. "It's working," Amara whispered, barely able to believe it, but Alara knew that this was only the beginning. The vortex were a formidable enemy, and they would not be easily defeated. As the aliens adapted to the traps, they began to deploy countermeasures, using their temporal nullifiers to dismantle the fields. The battle was turning, and the humans were running out of options. "We need a final contingency," Alara said, her mind racing. "Something that will end this once and for all." Isaac looked at her, understanding what she was suggesting. "The chronocore, we could use it to create a temporal rift, something that would send them back to where they came from. But it would be risky. If it goes wrong, it could destroy us along with them." Alara nodded, knowing the gravity of the decision. "It's a risk we have to take. If we don't, they'll wipe us out anyway." The team prepared the chronocore for its final task. As the vortex closed in, the last of the traps failing, Alara initiated the sequence. The chronocore hummed to life, its blue light intensifying as it began to tear open a rift in the fabric of time. The vortex ships, now dangerously close, were caught in the rift's pull, their temporal shields useless against the sheer force of the chronocore. One by one, the vortex ships were dragged into the rift, disappearing into the void. The rift grew, threatening to consume the entire facility, but Alara held firm, guiding the chronocore with precision. Finally, with a flash of light, the rift collapsed in on itself, taking the remaining vortex forces with it. The facility fell silent, the only sound the faint hum of the chronocore as it powered down. The team was exhausted, but they had survived. They had faced an enemy beyond their understanding and emerged victorious. In the aftermath, the full weight of their victory, and the cost, began to sink in. The research facility was in ruins, and several members of the team were lost, either to the battle or to the unpredictable effects of the time traps. But those who remained knew that they had done something extraordinary. Alara, Isaac, and Amara stood before the chronocore, the device that had been both their greatest achievement and their greatest danger. They knew that humanity was not ready for the power it held. The potential for misuse was too great, the consequences too unpredictable. "We have to seal it away," Alara said quietly. "Until we're ready. Until we can fully understand what we've created." The team agreed, and together they worked to deactivate the chronocore and lock it in a secure vault deep within the Earth's crust. The technology would be hidden from the world, a secret known only to those who had survived the battle. As they sealed the vault, Alara couldn't help but reflect on what they had done. They had pushed the boundaries of human knowledge, reaching into the very fabric of time itself. But they had also seen the dangers that such power could bring, and they knew that the world was not yet ready to wield it responsibly. The chronocore was a legacy, a tool that could one day be humanity's greatest asset, or its undoing. For now, it would remain in the dark, waiting for the day when humanity could truly understand the prison of time. As the vault door sealed shut with a heavy, final thud, the air in the research facility was thick with a mixture of relief and an unspoken sense of loss. Alara, Isaac and Amara stood in silence for a moment, each grappling with the weight of their actions. They had achieved something unprecedented, altering the very flow of time itself, but in doing so, they had come perilously close to destroying everything they held dear. Elara broke the silence, her voice subdued but resolute. We did what we had to do. The world isn't ready for this kind of power. We're not ready. Isaac nodded, his usual philosophical demeanor tinged with weariness. Time is a force that doesn't bend easily to our will. We've seen what happens when we try to control it without fully understanding the consequences. Amara, ever the pragmatist, stepped forward, her fingers tracing the cold steel of the vault's exterior. We've locked it away, but the knowledge still exists. We can't erase what we've learned. The question is, what do we do with that knowledge now? Elara's mind churned with the possibilities. They had just survived an encounter with an alien civilization far more advanced than their own, and the chronocore had been both their salvation and their curse. She knew that burying their discovery wouldn't be enough. The potential for its misuse remained, and the consequences of its existence were too profound to ignore. We'll have to make sure it stays hidden, she said, finally turning to face her team. But we also need to ensure that, when the time comes, the right people have the wisdom and understanding to use it. This isn't just about locking it away, it's about preparing for the future. The trio exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. The chronocore would remain sealed, but their work wasn't finished. They needed to lay the groundwork for future generations to approach time manipulation with the caution and respect it demanded. They returned to the wreckage of the facility, where the remaining team members were beginning the arduous process of clearing debris and salvaging what they could. The battle had taken its toll, not just on the physical structure but on the people within it. The loss of their colleagues weighed heavily on them all, a reminder of the high cost of their victory. As the days passed, Elara threw herself into the work of securing the chronocore's secrets. She initiated a series of protocols to erase all digital records related to the device, ensuring that only the physical blueprints, now locked in the vault, remained. Amara set about designing a series of fail-safe mechanisms, should anyone ever attempt to access the vault without the proper knowledge. Isaac, meanwhile, took on the task of compiling a comprehensive account of their research, one that would only be accessible under specific conditions. Should the need ever arise, life at the facility gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the shadow of their experience with the vortex lingered. The team became more guarded, their conversations more measured. The knowledge they carried was a burden, one that none of them could ignore. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the mountains, Elara found herself standing alone at the entrance to the vault. The cool evening air was a welcome contrast to the stale atmosphere of the facility. She had always been driven by her pursuit of knowledge, by the thrill of uncovering the mysteries of the universe. But now, standing before the sealed chronocore, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had ventured too far, too fast. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. Isaac approached, his face unreadable in the dim light. Thinking about the future, he asked, his voice soft. Elara sighed, not bothering to hide the weariness that had settled over her. It's hard not to. We've done something incredible, but we've also opened a door that might be better left closed. Isaac nodded, his gaze fixed on the vault. We've made our decision, but that doesn't mean it's the end of the story. History has a way of catching up with us, even when we think we've put it behind us. Elara knew he was right. They had taken every precaution to ensure that the chronocore would remain dormant, but the future was unpredictable. They had already faced one threat from beyond the stars. Who was to say that there wouldn't be others? And what if, one day, humanity decided to revisit the technology, driven by motives far less noble than their own? We need to be ready, she said quietly, for whatever comes next. The vortex were just the beginning. We've made ourselves known to the universe in a way that we can't take back. Isaac placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll face it together, just like we did this time. And maybe, when the time is right, we'll find a way to use this technology for good. Ilara smiled faintly, appreciating the comfort his words offered. But deep down, she knew that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. They had crossed a line, one that couldn't be uncrossed. The chronocore, and the power it represented, would remain a part of their lives, whether they liked it or not. As they turned to head back inside, the sky above them twinkled with the light of distant stars, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the small, fragile place humanity occupied within it. The future was uncertain, but they had made their choice. The chronocore would remain locked away, its secrets hidden from the world, until the day came when humanity was ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. For now, all they could do was wait, and prepare for whatever the future might bring.